started with today's episode, I would like to quickly read you our podcast disclaimer. This podcast is for educational purposes only, and it is not to substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. You should always speak with your physician or other healthcare professionals before doing any fasting, changing your diet in any way, taking or adjusting any medications or supplements, or adopting any treatment plan for a health problem. The use of any other products or services purchased by you as a result of this podcast does not create a healthcare provider-patient relationship between you and any of the experts affiliated with this podcast. Any information and statements regarding dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. All right, and now we'll get started with today's episode.
Welcome back to the Fasting Method podcast. This is Dr. Terri Lance, and I am joined with my lovely co-host, Dr. Nadia Pataguana. How are you today, Nadia?
Oh, I'm great, Terri. Well, maybe not as usual, but that's what we're here for, right?
That's right. So today is a little different episode. We're going to focus primarily on kind of some upcoming updates and things that are happening more personally, and also then will affect us here at the podcast and also in the TFM community. And we're also going to talk about how this applies for all of the listeners as far as when these kinds of things are happening in their lives too. So without any further ado, Nadia, we're here really today to talk a little bit more about some things that are changing in your life, which will, as I mentioned, affect us here at the podcast. Do you want to go ahead and share with us a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah, sure. So this is a hard one. I think it's even harder being here talking with you, Terri, than, sort of what I've been thinking about, what I wanted to say. And so, like you said, without further ado, after 8 years at the fasting method, my family and I have decided that it's time for me to move on, specifically because we are moving again. So some of you that I've had the immense pleasure of working with and just talking with and have listened to me and read our book know that my family and I move all over the place, right? This is not new to us, but we are moving yet again and in a very critical, I think, point in our lives. I've worked for 20 years straight, pretty intensely, in the same profession that I love and really did love and still love every second of it. But I've got a family. I've got my 2 girls, one who's a teenager already, one who's a preteen. My husband is a really busy guy. He travels a lot for work. And my 2 dogs, let's not forget the dogs, who are coming, of course, with us. And that's a whole other, oh gosh, if you've gone to another country with dogs, it's so much harder than taking kids. There's so much more paperwork. There's just so much. But anyway, just because a bit of the unknowns, but also just overall, as Terri said, just from so many life changes. In the last couple of years, I think many of you guys that work with me know I've dealt with some things just like the rest of you have. And so I have made the very, very difficult decision that I now need to focus on my family and our move in our new country and our new life. Because I haven't done that in the past, I've always chosen to try to hold on to both things. It has taken a toll. I've always felt, at different times, I felt like I wasn't good enough on my job. At times I felt like I wasn't good enough as a mother. And it really, to be honest, it has taken a tremendous toll on me emotionally and mentally. And so I have made this in talking with my husband and in talking with Terri and Megan and our team, this is a decision that I am now okay with. And it's official now. I was just telling Terri, I haven't yet mentioned this to any of my community clients. And so I don't know that I want them to hear it here for the first time. I think it's now time that we start slowly explaining to people, because this is the one thing I am still struggling with. I was telling Terri, right? 8 years in this amazing company with these amazing people, but it's the client. I know you guys will be okay. I know TFM will be okay, but it's hard. I used to hold 9 community meetings. I now only hold 1, but that one meeting is so important to me. And I know to the people that come in every week. It's a very large group that meets every week. I do the master classes and I love the master classes. And again, you guys always show up and give me really great feedback. So this is something that I've loved to do. But I'll be honest, over the last few years, specifically, of course, since I've had kids, it's actually become harder to parent and work since my kids have gotten a little older than when they were little. I thought it would be the opposite. When they were toddlers and in preschool and in elementary school, it was kind of like drop off, pick up, then you're home and present and available. As my kids have grown a little bit, the challenges have actually grown with them. This is why people say big kids, big problems, little kids, little problems. And so at this point in time, it really is very personal, but I really do have to take a little break. And I don't know, Terri, and I know you know this, I don't know how long that break is going to be. My husband says he bets it's going to be a lot shorter than I think it's going to be, but we'll see.
Nadia, obviously I have about 300 responses here, but one of the things just to kind of share back with you and hope that the community hears this is that I too went through a transition like this when I came to TFM. I left behind a psychology practice. So, I was people's therapist for years. And the hardest part of that move, besides getting the dog ready to go to Hawaii and packing all of my things in a 4x4 by 3 box, is that I had to announce to these people that I was leaving. The hardest part. A lot of tears on both sides of the room. Very complicated. And so I can really relate with how hard this is. Even though it's the right thing for you, it's hard leaving. It's hard knowing that people kind of rely on you and have connection with you, and then that's going to change for them. And as you said, everyone will be okay, but it's really hard to kind of extract yourself out of people's lives after you've become really important in their lives.
I really appreciate that, Terri. You may not actually realize how much that actually means to me because I hadn't even thought about that. Of course, you've gone through this and we've all gone through it, right? I had to leave Mozambique at some point and left those clients behind. And it was such a long time ago that I actually forgot about that. But that was super hard.
Yeah.
But it was done, I think, differently and gradually because I went and then came back and then went back and sort of left my clinic then. It's funny. I hadn't thought about that, but it is true. I have gone through it. It feels a little bit different, but I'll also say this for those listening. A lot of you guys are in my groups weekly or work with me very closely. And I am very open about a lot of things in my personal life. So I know a lot of you guys will understand, especially given a lot that's going on right now with my teenager, but it's still hard.
Absolutely. In my experience, when this happened, I knew it was the right thing for me. It led me to TFM. It was this big transition in my life. And I had one client who actually, she said something to the effect of, well, as long as you don't become a pineapple farmer or something like that. Like she just had these visions of what my life was going to be like in Hawaii. And I think she was trying to make sense of things as I was leaving practice. The other thing that I wanted to respond to in this is, I think, partly what you described is that push and shove, that push-pull, push me, pull you kind of feeling that many of us go through at various stages in our life when big changes are happening. Because as we move towards something, we let other things go. We have to make complicated decisions. On the outside, it may look like we just made these decisions really quickly or something, but know that these decisions have taken weeks and months and tears and difficult conversations and things. So just one, I wanted to be really aware of that this is something that you've put a lot of effort and heart into. But I was also thinking for so many of our clients and listeners, we go through these things, and how do we take care of ourselves while going through this? So as I'm thinking about this transition for you, Nadia, I'm thinking both all of the time leading up to now and starting to make these announcements, but also all of the background things that are happening, like you said, all of the tasks that need to get done, the packing, the finding a place to live, all of these things while still parenting, still working, and still taking care of you. I was hoping that maybe today we could also talk a little bit about how do we navigate self-care when we're going through these times of great transition and, never-ending tasks, it seems, and emotional things. Just kind of talk a little bit about how do we navigate that?
I need to be asking you, because my answer, as I joked to you at the beginning, is I don't. So that's exactly what's happened, right? And to add, those of you that I work with and that know me and know my little passion is, of course, women's health and whatnot, to add insult to injury, I'm going through perimenopause. Sorry for the TMI. I was just sharing with Terri. I'm getting my very first hot flashes. I'm getting, all of the things that you guys know that come with it. And so, as Terri said, it's the packing. Okay, that to me has been the physical part. I'm okay with it. It's everything else that's been super hard. Getting all the paperwork for the dogs. I was so overwhelmed with that, and finally getting an agent to work with that. And then getting a school for the kids. That was the hardest. We don't have a place to live yet, but I'm not even worried about that. It was a school that was, and then, so in the midst of that, no, I'm not taking care of myself. So I think that's a big one, because I can see the toll that it's taking, and I can see it. And you all know, right? You've all gone through similar things. You all know. And so, I do have to at some point. So that's why Terri and I are here, because Terri is now going to help me and hopefully through osmosis help you guys with how do we take care of ourselves during these times, because I'm not, guys. I'm not.
So Nadia, one of the things I think about during times like this, and this is the woo-woo part of today's episode, but maybe not quite woo-woo, but is that one of the things I encourage you to keep reminding yourself, and you did this a little earlier about another piece of this journey, is remind yourself that you do have coping strategies and you have gone through similar things. You haven't gone through the exact same thing in the exact same way at the exact same time and your kids at the exact same age, but you have gone through this before. And that's one of the reasons I'm guessing finding a place to live isn't worrying you as much, because you've done it multiple times before. And what you learn is it always works out in the end. There will be a place. We will make a home, regardless of the details. So reminding ourselves that we have the requisite skills and experiences to get through what feels like a very daunting experience right now, if we go back and say, oh yeah, remember? Now, for some of us, this also complicates things a little, because sometimes when we've gotten through these things in the past, it took a great toll on us. So for example, during this, you might think, oh, I remember when we moved when I was 14, and that's where your brain kind of gets stuck. And so you start living this out as if it is just like it was when you were 14. So I really, again, want to encourage highlighting not the difficulties of when you've done this before, but the how you overcame the challenges, that things did work. So rather than focusing on the 1,001 daunting tasks and all the things that could go wrong, to remind yourself, when I have faced similar challenging things, I found a way to get through them, and a few months' time, they were behind me. We have to keep reminding ourselves of that. The brain looks at this as if it's brand new, and it tries to go into shutdown. Like, oh no, I can't do this. So reminding ourselves, yes, I can do this. I've done this before. I've handled things similar to this, even if it's not the same. And again, try not to focus on any of the stressors and things that felt complicated in past experiences, focusing more on the resiliency. If you counted right now how many times you've moved, this is old hat to you. You've got this. Yes, it is a checklist and it's a lot of tasks on the checklist. Yes, There are a lot of emotional things that you have to navigate going through it, but you always get to that other side. You always have, and you always will.
It's so funny that you're saying that, but this is so much true. First of all, we're so much stronger than we give ourselves credit for, I think. And you're right, absolutely right. I have moved so many times in my life, right? Countries, not cities, countries. Every time I've moved, it's been to a different country. It's never been to a different city. Mm-hmm. I think that's hilarious. But I'm actually okay with that because, again, I think it's the experience, it's the resilience that I know that we have, and it's the fact that I like it. Obviously, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it so often, even though it's part of our lives because of being a couple and there being two of us. But it's not those things that worry me. It's all the new things. Because when I do remind myself that I've done this before or I've learned from it before, I don't get freaked out about it. Like I don't get freaked out about the fact that I'm going to a new country, new language, new whatever. It doesn't bother me. I don't get freaked out about I don't know. It's everything that's new. I've never had a teenager before. That freaks me out. Anything that's new is what I'm worried about. Traveling with the dogs. I have this massive fear because my dogs are pugs, right? So there's so much to this. Don't let me get started with my dogs because I would take up the whole episode. But my biggest stressor right now is that I keep having this like sort of dream. I don't know if it's dream or nightmare that I get to the airport and they don't let me board with the dogs because my dog is overweight for a cabin dog. And so we're going through that right now with my dog. And I cannot seem to completely stop giving him the treats. There's got to be something to this, right? He needs to lose weight. And I've done everything that the vet has said, but I'm still giving him treats. What does that say about me?
Okay, so all the listeners who have listened to you talk about TRE to the nth degree, please ignore just for a moment that TRE and dogs may not be the same thing.
Oh my God, my dog does not do TRE because of me.
But one thing I encourage Nadia with that even, and I know this gets complicated, is you start using the food as treats so that, a serving of food that your dog's going to get throughout the day, that's what they get, but they can get it as treats. So it's not just all of the meals and the treats. It becomes you take the treats from their food.
Do you see what I mean? It's the new things that we struggle with because you're not the first person who's told me this. But to me, it's like, I can't take it away from their meal. Mm-hmm. Anyway, you get where I'm at, right? Like I'm getting caught up in this thing that could be a lot simpler, but I'm making it complicated because that's the thing that I'm choosing to stress over because I'm not really stressing over the trip. Yeah. I'm not stressing over the trip. As you said, I probably shouldn't be stressing over the fact that I'm quote unquote leaving my role here because I've done it before, but that's hard because there's a human factor there, right? That's hard. That's going to be hard for me no matter what. No matter how many times I've done it before, as you said, there's a huge human factor here. So I think that's going to be hard no matter what. And then again, it's the kids. But yeah, the living situation, I couldn't care less. I think it's because not only have we done it before, but we are a family, right? And as long as we're together, it really doesn't matter where we're living.
That's right.
What it looks like or,
So 3 big points that I want to cover in what you've said. And also, I want listeners to think about how this kind of translates for them in their own experiences. Number 1, you said why you're doing all this is because it's worth it. When we have to do challenging things, I think it's really important to remind ourselves we do want this, even though it's challenging, because it's worth it. It pays off in certain ways. So the way that we can help make the challenging steps that we have to take okay to take is because the outcome is worth it. So when people start fasting in the beginning, when people start changing their approach to eating, it's not easy. These are challenging things to take on, but we take them on because they are worth it. And we have to keep reminding ourselves it is worth it. Marissa Peer shared in a talk one time about when she was writing one of her books, and she knew it was going to be a bestseller. She knew it was going to be great, but she was up at 2 a.m. typing on her book while her husband and daughter were sleeping. Everyone else was having fun while she was typing, and she had to keep reminding herself of the value of what she was doing. And then it didn't feel bad that she was up at 2 a.m. typing or typing while other people were out at happy hour, whatever. So number one, it's worth it. The outcomes, the things that are important to you that come from this are worth it, so you will do the difficult things. Second part, as you talked about, it's the new things that concern you. So I'm going to go back again. Remember when you first had infants? It was brand new then, and you got through it. You figured it out. You found your resources. You did what you needed to do. That doesn't make it easy, but it was doable. This also will be doable. You will find your resources. You will go through the challenging things. You have support. And again, you will see this on the other side. You'll have kids that are 25 and 27, and you'll say, oh yeah, remember getting through those teenage years. Remember getting through that new community. We had to make new friends. We had to establish new routines. Remind yourself you've done new things before, and you've always managed it. Then the third suggestion I have for you comes from a suggestion someone gave me about writing my dissertation. I could go to class, I could take exams, I could do all of those things, but writing that giant paper was my nemesis. At some point, I really considered dropping out of my PhD program because I just didn't want to have to write that paper. I didn't want to have to do the hard thing. I didn't want to have to do the thing that took all of that time and effort and planning and, implementation. I just didn't want to do it. I was overwhelmed by it. And what one of my colleagues said to me is they said, hey, Terri, I want you to think about everyone who has gone through our program. I want you to think about when you go to APA and you see everyone there with a PhD. What did they do? They all did this thing. They did these steps. And if all of those people can do it, certainly you can do it. Now, this one was harsh, but one of my friends said to me, Terri, I want you to think about so-and-so, maybe someone who really didn't seem to quite have it all on the ball. They got through the program. They now have PhD behind their name. They completed a dissertation. If this person can complete a dissertation, certainly you can complete a dissertation. So to remind yourself, how many other people have moved with dogs? I had to move Gracie to Hawaii. I couldn't believe the gymnastics I had to go through to get that to happen. The money, the paperwork, the timing, the veterinary visits, the vaccines. It was crazy.
It is crazy, Terri. I don't mean to take us on a tangent here, but somebody's got to change this because this is and I was not expecting it. So yes, to your point.
But again,
yeah, I think when you're expecting it.
How many people have accomplished this before? And it helped me actually to get into some groups and listen to people. Now, sometimes that can be overwhelming and scare us away from things. But for me to hear people say, yep, and oh, here's a little tip. You might want to think about this. Oh, and make sure you do this. Hey, carry this with you. I felt so prepared. But like you, right up until the last minute, I kept kind of checking over my shoulder like, oh, is this really going to work? Because it had taken months. It took me less time to pack and get ready. It took months to get the dog ready to move. So remember, other people have done what you are doing. Now, I don't mean that to minimize what you're going through, but instead to boost you up. Same thing with our community and our listeners. Why do we all love the transformation episodes? Why do we love the transformation stories that people put on Facebook or come into the community and share in meetings or in town hall meetings? Because we want to know that other people do this thing that I'm working to do. If they can do it, certainly I can do it.
Yeah, this goes to that podcast that you and I recorded. I always think of this, our limiting beliefs, right? Because when things start to get really hard, we start to go, well, I'm not going to be able to do this. And it starts to get really, really overwhelming. But when we start to figure out how to do it by listening to other people, like how did they do it? Then that really challenges our limiting beliefs. And so that's what I'm going through right now.
That's right. And then the other part that I think is really important, again, for you at this time, but also for our listeners and our community members as we go through these things in our lives. Getting through difficult times is not made easier by the choices that have made us unwell. So if, for example, I'm working on glucose control and I'm working with fasting and eating better, but I run up against this really stressful time. Like I moved last August, not as big as your move, but I moved. It's complicated. You have to make a lot of decisions and you have to pack and all of those things. Eating foods or doing behaviors that got me sick in the first place technically will not make that process easier. But it fools us. It makes us think it'll feel good in the moment. There's a little bit of a reprieve, a little bit of a break. But I think what more and more people in our community are starting to acknowledge in meetings is I feel worse when I do that. And when I eat those foods or when I eat too often, my brain isn't as clear. But Nadia, you just said you have to make 1,001 decisions. Don't you want your brain to be as clear as possible? Emotionally, I'm more labile when my food is off. Well, you are navigating a difficult emotional process here. You want to set yourself up for the best ability to navigate those difficult emotions. And I know what I'm talking about is complicated because it's immediate feel good, immediate relief, immediate gratification versus what will help me bigger picture in this. But eating problematic food, eating too often, whatever it is for us, is actually going to make navigating what you're navigating harder. Why would we do that to ourselves? It's that whole thing of work smarter, not harder. But the way we've often learned to cope, we compound the complexity of the difficult thing because we're trying to placate ourselves in the moment.
That's very true. Luckily for me, I just finished doing a Fat Fast masterclass and I have a group meeting every week and, all of these support systems for me. So as I'm going through this, although I haven't had a chance to talk to people about it outside of, my little circle, I'm having all of this support. And I'm big on step by step. And so it's just, I put myself in these Fat Fast recovery plans, the holding pattern, right? That I'm so big on TRE. I'm not doing TRE for my dog, but I certainly know that for me. And it's things like this. So I definitely agree with that. But I can see how, and I'm sure there have been times over the last few weeks, especially as I'm struggling with a few things with my daughter, that you go down that route. But luckily then I have the Fat Fast and the recovery plan and things like that, right? So
Sure.
That's big. The one big thing, Terri, that I know we won't have time to talk about today, and that deserves a podcast, I think, in and of itself, because I actually don't know if we've done one specifically on this. I can't remember at this point. But it's all the cortisol lowering techniques that I should be doing and I'm not doing.
Mm-hmm.
And why, when our stress level is so high and our cortisol is so high, it seems so hard. Somebody said this in my group today. I was covering a group for somebody, and somebody said, when your stress is so high, it's so hard to do cortisol lowering techniques. That's why it's important to practice them when your cortisol is a little lower.
That's
Practice
right.
and become really good at cortisol lowering techniques on the daily so that when your cortisol is real high, it won't be so hard to do it. I'm telling you, I'm struggling right now. I'm struggling with exercise. I always struggle with exercise. But when you're really, really stressed and you most need it, I find that is something I need to figure out how to do more of, and probably those listening that are going through something similar.
Absolutely. And I think one of the reasons we, as most people, struggle with this is it's one more task. It's 10 more tasks on the list. And when you already have a task list for today that is longer than your arm, it's hard to think, okay, well, I'm also going to do a 20-minute walk. I'm going to meditate. That's 5 more things to add to the list. I'm not adding any more to the list. So one of the things I really want to encourage, and I know this is oversimplifying it, but I think in this example, oversimplification is really key. Even if you didn't do all 39 of the cortisol lowering techniques that Coach Lisa created a handout for us about, is focus on the breath work, because that is one you can do while you're packing. You can do that while you're going to pick up the girls from an activity. You can do this while you're having to say goodbye to someone. Breathing is the to me, it should be the fundamental, foundational, number one stress reducing, cortisol lowering technique that everyone carries around in their back pocket.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You could see my eyes are popping because you said that and I realized, okay, I'm asking your advice here, by the way. I'm not plugging anything. I'm not. Yesterday, because about a week or two ago, I don't know what I was doing and I was feeling stressed. I must have read something or come across something. And I have a shopping addiction, I think, as many people do online, right? It just shows up and you buy, right? Anyway, I bought these two little for my daughter, right? My daughter and I. It comes in a pack of two, these little breathing things, these little necklaces that have a little breathing tube. Do you know what I'm talking about? I don't know what they're called. But I got it in the mail a day or two ago. And I'm thinking, I haven't put it on, but I'm thinking, does that work? Do you know anything about that?
Here's the thing about breath work. There's not one right way to do it. What that little device does is it helps you become conscious of doing breath work throughout the day. It is not the necessary this protocol or this one. Most important is for any of us to find what works for us. And if having this thing around your neck reminds you to do it, again, you can stand there, and listeners can't see us right now, but I'm holding my necklace up to my lips. You could stand in a store while you're feeling anxious or feeling stressed, and you could do breath work. That is the beauty of breath work. You can do it anywhere. You can do it on a crowded train. You can do it on an airplane. You can do it in a business meeting. You can do it during an argument with your spouse. Anywhere you can practice breath work. And the other important thing that you said, and I'll tell you, I cheated a little bit for this because just the other day I recorded a podcast episode with Daisy for Monday Mindset, and it was all about breath work being one of the best stress relieving activities that we can do, and also stress inoculating activities. So like you said, we don't want to just practice our good coping strategies when our stress level is super high. We want to practice it all of the time, regularly. One, this will help keep our stress level from getting as high because we're, ratcheting it down all the time. And two, it will make the technique effective in those higher stress times. So absolutely, you don't want to wait until the most stressful moment and then pull out that necklace and hope that it works. It's not magic. It's a trained thing. You're going to practice breath work. And the more you practice it, the better you are going to respond to stressful things, and the better you will be able to respond at the highest stress moments.
This is brilliant. Just for this alone, this was totally worth it because I don't do any of that. And I think that having that little gadget, I hope, I don't know, but it's like you said, the reminder of it, which will then hopefully get me to do something. This was totally worth it. Thank you, Terri.
Great. Another quick breath work, one that is super easy because we do it naturally, is referred to as the physiological sigh. If you're in a meeting and you just need it to hurry up because you've got 20 tasks waiting, what do? You know to calm yourself with that. So start to use it more intentionally. That deep breath in and that longer exhale out with a little bit of an audible breath out. Again, most people notice they do this naturally. And I apologize. Currently, there is some background sound going on. Not going to record over it. Just going to let you know the trash has been picked up. Life is good here, but there is some background noise. So anyway, Nadia, I think this is a great example of you don't right now, in the midst of all of this, have to go learn 26 new strategies. You could practice just this one and see true benefit.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Terri. You really were thinking of me.
Absolutely. Very good.
Well, I don't know. I know we're done for today and I'll let you send us off, but I'm not quite sure what I want to say to our community at this point. I know I'll have the opportunity to speak with the people that I work with on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, very, very often. I know I'll make and I will have the opportunity to speak with those people. And gosh, I will not sound like this when I do speak with them. And that's okay, right? I've always joked in the community that I'm as human as it comes, right? I'm somebody who's very transparent, who's very direct, who's very, and so I don't expect it to be any different than what I'm thinking it's going to be. But I'm not quite sure what else to say today, Terri. I'll be honest. This is a challenge. It's been 8 wonderful, amazing, the growth that I've experienced in the last 8 years, thanks initially to Dr. Fung and Megan Ramos. I can never and could not say enough thank yous. And then, of course, to all the rest of you, Terri, you have been, and I've been very vocal about this, right? Of what I've learned with you, and I'm already getting, okay, I'm gonna have to stop here. Sorry, guys. This is a lot for me. I am a very open person. So no doubt that this is being a challenge. And many times, and many of you that know me know, I carry a lot of mom guilt. That's a whole other topic. I carry a lot of mom guilt, and I am just taking the steps to dealing with that. And I know you guys understand. So I don't know. I'm going to say see you later, everyone, because I just don't know what else to say.
Well, Nadia, as I was saying, kind of my termination statements with clients when I left my practice, and actually anytime a client was done working with me, I would always try to talk a little bit about how are you going to carry this with you? How will you keep what you've worked on here and what you've learned with me? How are you going to keep this going? So I thought of one for you that I hope everyone carries with them if they don't get to keep hearing you on the podcast or whatnot, but that they will always carry this, keeping your eyes on the prize. That I know you have like 1,000 other statements and gems that you have given people, but I think that boils it down into a nutshell. Keep your eye on the prize. What is it that you're going for? And doing what it takes, trusting yourself. Don't get bogged down by all of the noise and all of the extra details and the 47 other ways you could do this. Keep your eye on the prize. Keep moving forward, focused on what you want.
Thank you, Terri. I will remember that, especially because you say it differently than I do. And so I'm going to remember that. But thank you for reminding me that I do want to say something to all you guys listening. Keep your eye on the ball, guys. That's exactly it. That's Coach Nadia, Dr. Nadia. I'm always saying it. I probably said it 100 times during the Fat Fast Masterclass. Guys, keep your eye on the ball. You got this. All right? You got this.
And that also means keep your eye on where you're going, not where you've been. A lot of us get caught up in those limiting beliefs because we're looking behind us. So keep your eye on the ball. It's in front of you. I love analogies, you know that. But if you think about any game that you play with a ball, you can't do well with it if you're not watching the ball.
That was really nice. Thank you, Terri.
Absolutely.
Gave me an opportunity to really bring me back to, if I can leave you guys with anything, and like Terri's analogies, I got my analogies. I've got all my little nicknames for everything. If I can send you off with anything, it's exactly that. Thanks for reminding me. Keep your eye on the ball, guys.
Good. All right, everyone. This was a difficult episode for both of us and probably a difficult episode for some of you as well. So take good care of you. Keep your eye on the ball. Think of everything we just talked about how we get through difficult times. And I look forward to coming back and talking with you again soon. Take good care, everybody.